Oh no, I mean. You just run it.
Something like where it's like if I stay and they say take my money.
Yeah, the one where it's like this guy like going lock it out.
I have two things. One, I'm planning to potentially do a master's thesis in computer science over the summer. I might not get the program, but we'll see. Isn't it asked? I can give you my question and stuff if you'd be interested in
Send me an email about it.
Yeah, okay. I have to submit a form tonight with like a sign off, I guess, for my advisor, my supervisor. So, take your time. This is very last minute, but I'll send it to you during class or after class.
Okay.
My information. I can also meet you tonight during the 6 to 8.
I've been declining most of those requests because I just don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Right, you seem busy.
What was your second thing?
Oh, so for the team for project 3, if I was like a random assignment at work.
Yeah, it'll happen tonight, and I usually check to make sure people are still in the class, and then I just randomly start throwing names together.
Gotcha. So if we have like a team of like 2 or 3 that we are deciding on,
You'll be kept together if possible.
Okay, and then just assign persons.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, but that's. We have an API. Remember the API? Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started. All right, welcome back from spring break. I hope it was a nice one. I'm very ill right now, not in a way that's contagious, so don't worry about getting too close or talking to me. Okay, so lecture 14. We have a number of things launching today. We have your Project 3 launching today, and I've got a little reminder to myself to turn off the team formation for this project. If you made a mistake, and if you are late, if you still want to form a team or add someone to your team late, I'm not going to start randomly assigning people until this evening. So please reach out and let me know as soon as possible. Email me, and we can maybe get that person added to your team. Okay? Okay, so I want to show you a really cool video. I really like this series. It is a day in the life of a Japanese game developer. In particular, this is going to be a look into what it's like to work at Namco Bandai in, I think, Osaka, but I'm not entirely sure. In any case, pay close kind of attention to what you notice of the office space, and I will give you some points of comparison for Western studios in just a moment. Let's go ahead and take a look.
This is a day in the life of a Japanese game programmer. This is Masa, 23-year-old programmer living in Tokyo and working for one of the largest video game companies in Japan. And this is how he starts his workday. He lives alone in a typical Japanese apartment, which are known for their efficient use of space, like his enclosed heated bath with built-in sink facilities. Masa, how long does it take for you to get ready for work?
だいたい顔洗って着替えて5分10分ぐらいで朝は終わっちゃいます。
Like most salarymen in Tokyo, he commutes to work by train, door to door about 40 minutes, so it's not bad. But more than half of his trip is walking to and from the train station, not pleasant on rainy days like this. Alright, so Masa should be coming soon, but the typhoons these months have been really crazy. And look, the trains are super packed. Crazy typhoon, right?
すごいですね。もうズボンびしょびしょなんで風呂入りたいですね。
So Masa works for Bandai Namco Studios, which is the network entertainment unit of Bandai Namco Group. They're known for developing popular game titles like Tekken, Mario Kart, and even Pac-Man. And there's about 1,000 employees in the Tokyo office spread across 5 floors. That's his digital time card. He's officially clocked in now. Also, common in many Japanese companies is for employees to change into slippers for the workday. So this is Masa's office, very common Japanese style desk with low dividers. So Masa keeps his desk very simple, like many of his co-workers. It's very different when compared to Western desks which are often littered with decorations and family pictures. First thing in the morning, he checks his email, as well as the internal company social network for updates, while also having a quick breakfast. Masa, where did you buy your juice?
これですか？近くのスーパーで安売りしてるやつをいつも買ってます。
What is that?
カロリーメイトはシリアルというか、あとクッキーみたいなものなんですけど。
So Masa's doing his morning task right now. It's going to be some time before he has kind of like a break because he's pretty focused. So let's go walk around the office and see what kind of facilities they have. So right behind Masa's desk, they have a game corner kind of place right here. And they have a Switch, they have PlayStation, they have Xbox, and they even have some virtual reality gear. I guess you can play games anytime you want, which is pretty cool. Oh wow, and just below here, there's a big computer. I think it's an alien computer. Looks like one powerful machine. Alright, so this is the break room area on the second floor. Let's see what they have. They separate all of the trash. You have your burnables, you have your cans and your bottles, and you also have your non-burnables out of plastic. They have a hot water pot and microwave. So the 290 is just an corner, but it runs on the honor system. So basically, at the top, you have a place where you deposit money, all the different chocolates or candies, they have a price for it. And even the refrigerator has frozen treats like ice cream or whatnot. And you just need to pay on the honor system, and then you take what you actually paid for. I don't know, how would this do in your country's office? Alright, and so let's check what's down here. So this place says library, but in fact it's not a library of books, it's a library of games. Check this out. They have all these different consoles, all the way from like Nintendo to PC, and I don't even know what that is. Got the original NES here, GameCube, and the original Sega Saturn, even a family computer. They have like every single game ever.
So this is a really nice video. We're about 1/3 of the way through. I encourage you to watch it at home if the topic interests you. This library right here, why on earth would you have this? Well, our host here makes a remark when he looks behind a desk and sees that there's some virtual reality equipment, right? There's an Alienware computer, right? There's a library full of games. You can play any game you want, right? Wow, what fun, okay? None of this is here for fun. None of this is here for fun at all, okay? Namco Bandai, if you don't have context, is a very, very large gaming group that is hired on many occasions to build franchises and build titles for other companies. If you didn't know, Super Smash Bros., has anyone heard of it? Is made by a big group from Namco Bandai. They might even be in that building. And it is imperative when you've got a company that is working on many legacy historical franchises to be able to go back to the past, no matter what console that past game might have been on. They need to go back, they need to play it, they need to have the authentic experience. An emulator is not going to cut it. Because when you go back and you play classic games the way they were originally played on a CRT, right, via the actual hardware controllers, you will have a different experience. You will enjoy different vibes than you will experience on an emulator, okay, or by just watching YouTube videos. And so it's really, really necessary for a company like Namco Bandai to have resources like this. I'll also point out something that our host pointed out as well. At most Western AAA game studios, I would say most Western studios in general, you tend to get layouts that are maybe a little bit less open in their design. You can, for instance, have quite a few people who have private offices, and you often have desks that are just littered with stuff. Littered with whatever pop culture stuff you can find. Figures, paintings, posters. I remember walking through Maxis. I think it was, third floor of EA, Redwood Shores headquarters. And there was just an endless supply of crap. And it was fun crap, right? But just littered everywhere. You felt like you were walking through this jungle of toys. Whereas when I see this, it is much, much cleaner by comparison, and I don't know, it has more of a focused feel to it. In any case, I encourage you to explore what game development life is like, okay? And not just in the States, but all over the world. It is an industry that is just beloved by many, but it's an industry that has the Hollywood effect. In many, many ways. You're going to go to that industry, you're going to work very hard, you're going to be a rock star, you're going to get paid less than you might expect. You might work longer hours than you hope for, but this all depends on where you end up. There are a lot of shops that are very 9 to 5, very normal, kind of Google-ish tech job vibes, and then there are many places which are not that. So it's a very diverse, very interesting industry in many ways. Just make sure that you know about it and never forget about the game-adjacent possibilities. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean you don't need to go work on games with all of your game dev knowledge. You can go to Ford. They have a design laboratory where they use game engines to simulate design tools, simulate how a vehicle is going to work. Where they create real-time CG commercials for their latest products, okay? It's not game dev, it's not as romantic, but it will pay the bills and give you a high quality of life. So make sure that you are keeping all of your options open. And remember that careers are long and that a lot of people jump around quite often, okay? And when they get someplace and they decide they want something fresh and new, they jump around, okay? That's something you can do too. A note on this course, class is going to start diverging from what you're used to. The early part of this course is all about getting into the nitty-gritty in Unity, getting into the trenches and helping you out. But as you enter Project 3, everyone is going to be working on something different. You're all going to have different needs depending on the Project 3 design that you choose. And so we're going to be moving to a little bit more of a higher level approach for this course. We're going to be talking about things that all of you still care about, and those things are going to be higher level, okay? One team might care very, very much about lighting, and the next team might care not at all. So we tend to avoid those topics. But in any case, we'll be talking very soon about team organization. We will be giving you kind of a gentle introduction to SIMD and GPU programming. So if you've ever wondered, hey, what's a shader? That's kind of a fancy word, right? How do I program my own interesting graphical effects? How do I write code that's going to run on a GPU instead of a CPU? It's a very different world, okay? It's a very different manner of programming. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit, okay? We're going to talk about games and education, games and art. We might talk about games and business, though I think I moved that to the EECS 440 course, so I don't think we'll have time to talk about that. And today, we're going to launch Project 3, and then we're going to talk about themes. Theming. It's one of the most important things you can figure out with your Project 3 team, and if you do this early, your life will be very nice. If you mess this up, your life will be not so nice, okay? And so, please look forward to that. And we're going to talk about post-processing today. I think this is a topic we didn't have time to get to a week ago before spring break arrived. If you recall, we kind of finished talking about juice and implementing a bunch of juiciness concepts together. We're going to talk about post-processing, which also is kind of juice adjacent. And it's a fun, quick little talk. It's amazing how you can change a game's feel and tone and vibes by using some of these post-processing effects. Why are they called post-processing? Anyone know? What does post mean? It means after. Post-processing, they're the effects that you do after the frame has finished. Okay? You have rendered everything, you've computed the frame, you've rendered everything in that frame that you want, you've got all your characters right there, but that final image, that final 2D array of pixels, it's boring. Okay? It's too vanilla. So we're going to run some algorithms on that final 2D array of pixels to bring it to life, to give it a certain vibe or edge, okay? Those are post-processing effects, and we'll be talking about those in just a moment. But let's see here. First thing I want to do is I want to introduce that final project. This is it. This is your final project. We are a little over halfway finished with the entire course at this point, and of course, Google Slides won't load in Firefox. It's the only reason I use Chrome anymore, just to make the slides actually work. I wonder if there couldn't be some antitrust scrutiny for this, but P3, Showcase Game Project. What is it? It's a big, big showcase game that you're going to make, okay? And by big, I mean not very big. It is 15 to 20 minutes in length. If you go any longer than this, no one's going to want to play your game. Okay, they're going to have 15 to 20 games that they want to try out. They're only going to have about 2.5 hours to do it. And so you got to have a kind of brief but cohesive and complete experience for them. This is actually a small version of what we tend to have these days. This is one of our earliest showcases. And you can see here, you've got a lot of people trudging through the darkness and snow to come enjoy your experiences. And you've got a lot of students behind desks here. This is about how much space you'll have. You'll have one kind of 6-foot table. And your mission will be to get as many stations up and running as possible so that you have as little of a line as possible. How many of you have been to a theme park? Theme park, okay? When you've got a booth or a stall, when you've got a vendor hall stall, when you've got a game at an expo like this, it really inflates your ego to see a big line form, right? Wow, everyone wants to try out my game. This is great, right? But what is happening when you've got an eager player in a line? Every moment that passes, they are losing interest in your game. They are burning themselves out, okay? Their expectations are rising because the longer they wait, the more it needs to be worth it. And every moment that there's a big line for your booth, people walking by say, I wanted to play that, but it's not worth it. They balk at playing your game. That's one less vote for you, because if someone does not play your game, they will not vote for you, okay? What is the most optimal situation to have with a booth like this? You want your line to be exactly how long? Yes? 0 people, absolutely. You want your booths, all of your stations to be full and absolutely 0 people waiting, okay? That is optimal throughput, and you can achieve that if you have more stations available. What do I mean by a station? A laptop, okay? A TV, I don't care, a desktop, anything that lets someone play the game, okay? So keep that all in mind now. Throughput often wins the showcase. Do you need to win the showcase? No, you don't at all. Some games, some genres are just not very good for expos like this. If you make a horror game for a loud and noisy and bright expo where everyone is standing next to hundreds of their friends, that's not the optimal situation to play a horror game. That does not mean you shouldn't make a horror game, okay? All right, so anyway, this is the Classic Game Project. It can get quite busy. We can have a lot of people there. We are going to have some teams from Eastern Michigan University this time, just up the street. And it is often an incredible experience. Most students really, really enjoy attending the showcase. You are required to attend the showcase unless you message me to tell me you have an exam or something. And this is the moment when you finally get to watch other people engage with and experience the thing you've created. You get to watch the emotions flood onto their face. You can see 3 people right there having a great time. And I will tell you, after 14 difficult weeks of learning how to make games, it can be very easy to fall out of love in games, to forget what games are for, what they do for people. But at the showcase, you will remember why that effort and that time is worth it, okay? You'll see the smiles on their faces. You will see them experience things they haven't experienced in a while, okay? Answer interesting questions, okay? Choose how they want to navigate a level. You will be surprised by what they discover, and I'm not talking bugs, okay? They will show you new ways to play your game that you've never seen or thought of before. Okay, the showcase for many people is when it all becomes obviously worth it. Okay, people will wear costumes. Okay, people will try and theme their booth around their game as much as possible. They will try and create an experience for their game that starts before you've even grabbed the controller, and they'll have a good time. And I'm talking about the players, and I'm talking about you. All right. Some people get a little bit carried away. This is a game themed around a bears. And there's nothing that makes you stand out more than a big onesie and a bear costume, right? That's pretty rare on college campus. People will vote for you. We used to do it by dropping little tokens into a bag. And then at the end of the showcase, we would weigh your bags, and whoever had the heaviest bag wins, okay? We do it digitally now. It saves a ton of time, much easier. A little bit less fun though. A little bit less dramatic. Before we all go out and vote and play your games in the hall, we will shuffle everyone into 1670 BBB, and we will show off all of your trailers for your games. Okay? So what does a showcase game look like? You saw these at the very beginning of the course. I'm not going to show you this one again. Did you see this one? The people who made this game are working on No, their studio closed. Oops, sad.
A Spooky Night In is a 4-player asymmetric party game that pits hunters against ghosts in a 2D Dollhouse-style mansion during a cocktail party. Ghosts must possess and kill party guests using the environment, while hunters must find and kill ghosts and minimize the killing of the party guests. Warning: in this party you may experience death by piano, death by night, death by sword, death by boss, and death by chandelier, death by barrel. Oh. Stay spooky, my friends.
The best trailers often have an element of cheese and comedy, but they are mixed in with a very serious objective to help you understand what the thing is. You will not vote for a game, you will not be excited to play it if you don't really have a good feeling for what you're going to get. And so, in these trailers, which you will need to create yourself eventually, the trailers all put a lot of effort into explaining what is happening. What do you do in this game? What decisions do you make? You saw EECS Infiltration, right? Yeah, you did. Okay. Oh, this video was made private. Interesting. I don't think you saw this one, did you? Ninja Brian and Steve the Llama? Okay. James Peretta just interviewed to become a faculty member here. If he takes the job, I'm going to send this to him.
Ninja Brian and Steve Llama is a cooperative action-adventure game about two best friends as they traverse through a dangerous and treacherous landscape.
Ninja Brian and Steve the Llama is an asymmetrical cooperative game. What does that mean? Well, the trailer doesn't quite explain it, but the narrator doesn't explain it, but the visuals, the choice of shots absolutely does. The video footage shown is very, very careful to show instances where the two players have to work together, right? The llama throwing the lighter ninja, the ninja hitting a switch, letting the llama through, okay? Then combining to do kind of a team attack here, right? Throwing each other across gaps, letting the other person through. It's a good trailer. It's good vibes, has very well-chosen audio and music. It's really, really good stuff. But I'll show you more of these later. But I want to talk about the high-level schedule here. This is our longest project. It's going to come in about 6 to 7 weeks. You will discover if you talk to anyone from other universities that 6 to 7 weeks is our longest project. It is not a long project, okay? The speed at which you are making these projects, these games, is really about your skill levels and your dedication as engineers, okay? There's something about UMich students that allow them to do really hard things very quickly. Okay? And you will be able to do it, all right? The first 2 weeks of this assignment is your prototyping phase. You remember Project 2? Well, you're about to do a Project 2 again, but this time with 4 to 5 friends, okay? That will lead us into kind of a middle phase where once you have kind of found your game's identity, you're trying to expand it. You're trying to get enough content to reach that magical 10 to 15 minutes of length, okay? Meaningful content, all right? Not copy and paste stuff. And then the final 2 weeks, your objective will become to polish the experience up, to make it very nice, to make it beautiful, to make it juicy, to balance the difficulty, okay? And, right, all of these 3 phases, most teams kind of mess up their schedule a little bit and they bleed one phase into the other. That's fine. But this is the ideal. For 2 weeks now, beginning today, you're going to have an experience very similar to P2. Your mission is to find the identity of your game, to find a mechanical identity, but also to find an identity for your theme. okay? You want to be taking some risks here early on. You want to try and find something that is new and novel and fresh and a little bit unexpected. Your goal is to find the fun, all right? Then, after 2 weeks, after you finally ideally have an identity, you found a core set of simple mechanics that work well together, you want to explore them further. What are all the things that this core set of mechanics can do? You are not adding more mechanics in. You are looking at the things you already have and you're trying to explore them deeply and fully, okay? You're doing a lot of play testing. You're trying to confirm that, yes, people still like this stuff. You have found the fun, but your goal now is to deepen the fun, okay? And in the final 2 weeks, it's all about professionalism. You've got a fun game. No one's going to play it. It doesn't look very good. It looks like a mess. It's not cohesive. The theming isn't really there. It lacks charm. It has no juice. Your characters aren't very appealing, right? And so professionalism in that final 2 weeks is where you go in and you try and clean things up. You spit shine it. You go in and you try and make it appealing, all right? You try and get your theme more cohesive. You think about your color palette, all right? All of the things that you might be surprised to find in an engineering course, there's still things you need to care about, okay? You can't just be an engineer if you're going to be in game dev. It doesn't work that way. Games are much more than engineering technology products. They are technology products, but they are so much more at the same time, okay? You will also think very hard about marketing because, again, and this is something that haunts the University of Michigan campus. This is the reason I've created EECS-298. We are so good at making well-designed games, games that mechanically work very well, games that internally are very scalable. They are well-engineered. They are relatively bug-free. No one plays them. They don't look like much. They just aren't very appealing. They don't bring you in, okay? And we don't have the EECS-298 knowledge yet. The course doesn't exist yet, but we are still going to do our best. We're still going to talk about some of these things and how to get some very quick wins to make our games, our trailers more appealing, okay? It's simply that important. Image is not everything, but it is the first thing, okay? So we need to make sure we do a decent job. The goal here is presentability, all right? And this is important for your portfolios. People are going to look at your portfolios to decide whether to give you a job. They're probably not going to play them. They're just going to look at them, okay? They might watch some footage. If you create a trailer, they might take 45 seconds to watch that trailer. Probably not going to download it to a corporate machine. Might be security policies in place to prevent that. They might be on a Mac, and oops, your Mac build doesn't work, right? So we have to make sure that our games are appealing, our itch.io pages look good, all that good stuff. All of this is going to be 2 weeks. And unfortunately, right, the creative process is not so straightforward sometimes. You can't just say that at the end of 2 weeks you're going to know your game's identity or it's going to be good, okay? There are some teams in this course that are going to get to week 4 and decide they want to restart development. Going to do their entire Project 3 in the final 2 weeks. That has happened. It happens every single semester. It's never very pleasant for the team that is affected by this. But it usually works. It usually works, okay? So this is all to say that this is your high-level ideal schedule. This is what you should be thinking about. But sometimes the creative process is not so straightforward, and you do need to zig and zag a bit, okay? No, that is the case, and do the best you can to stay on the schedule, but, do the best you can. Here's the low-level schedule, okay? Diving into the details, these are the dates that we have. We've got today, and then we have on the 22nd, our showcase. The course is kind of mostly over on the 22nd. On the 29th, it's definitely done, okay? Here's why, all right? P3 Gold Spike launches today. It is much the same as your P2 Gold Spike. We're looking for a complete gameplay loop, and we're looking for you to identify some super important mechanic and then experiment toward it, okay? P3 Milestone comes after. This is the first assignment where you're going to be judged on your interesting decisions, your novelty, your guidance. Don't forget about that. Your juice now. It will be the first time that juice becomes an actual individual criteria that we evaluate you on. Okay? P3 milestone 2 will come in, and then P3 alpha will come in. Does anyone know what an alpha is? What it is meant to mean? If you ever say, my software is in alpha, we've reached alpha, we will soon be in beta. What does alpha mean? Yes?
First user interaction?
Possibly, right? So you might say, some teams might say that, hey, we're going to get to an alpha and then show it to users. That's not what I would recommend. I recommend you get your users in as early as you can. Alpha usually means feature complete, content complete. You've got everything in your game that you're ever going to have in your game, in terms of mechanics, in terms of levels even. You might tweak them and rebalance them and reorder them, but this is content complete. If you ever hear that a game has finished alpha, or that a game is pre-alpha, if it's pre-alpha, like the final boss isn't in yet, okay? The last few levels aren't in. If it is alpha, all those things are in, and you're now into beta, and you're trying to fix everything. Okay? Beta is when you fix things. You are really putting it in front of a ton of people, as many as you can. You're trying to find all the bugs, polish all the things, balance all the things. And now, when you're done with beta, you have gold, okay? Where you are just shipping that final game, making it perfectly stable, and you're good, okay? Now, realistically, almost every 494 team will still be adding stuff during their P3 alpha and P3 beta phases. Not ideal, because there is one thing that will be true in this course always, okay? It takes 1 week to put something into your game. It takes a second week for it to be any good at all, okay? And we see this constantly as graders. We're going to be grading your project every week. It is not particularly pleasant for us, especially at the beginning. And one of the reasons why is that when you're adding new things, you put something new into your game, it is awful. It is almost always awful. It usually has something terribly wrong with it. It is misbalanced. The controls have been very awkwardly chosen. The graphics and aesthetics are very confusing, so people don't know what it is, or they don't know how to use the thing you just put in. Or it looks really nasty. It doesn't look like it's from the same game. It's not cohesive. It takes 1 week to get something in, at which point you get a lot of feedback and a lot of data on what's wrong about it, and then in the second week you polish it up. Finally, it's good. It feels cohesive. It works, okay? And I feel sorry for having kind of a cynical tone this morning. That's just where my brain is at right now. I apologize. But that is the situation, okay? So remember that, because when you get to P3 Gold, why does adding stuff no longer work? You get to P3 Gold, you don't have that second week anymore, okay? So please keep that in mind. We need that additional week to finish anything that we put in. P3 Project Management. This is finally, if you've been kind of annoyed with Jira, first of all, you can be annoyed with Jira. You still need to learn Jira. People are still going to use it in industry and wherever you end up. But this is the first real assignment where it really proves itself, okay? Keeping your teammates, of which you will have, 3 to 4, all on the same page is not easy. Figuring out what everyone's working on, okay, and whether someone is going to be able to deliver something that's super important for this week's deliverable, this causes a lot of pain. We got one particular feature that is ultra important to our next submission. Oops, does anyone know who's working on it? Does anyone know if the person who is assigned to work on it is sick this week? Are they going to be able to finish it on time? Okay. So please make use of Jira. Help yourselves keep track of each other. And that will prevent a lot of very, very late Sunday nights. Okay. P3 Research. You will be doing a research assignment where once you've identified what genre your game is likely to be in, you'll be playing 8 games from that genre. That's a lot. But you now have 4 to 5 people on your team. So please divide this stuff up, okay? And you'll only have to play and write about 2 games apiece. That's not too bad, okay? You will have a trailer that is due toward the end of the project, okay? You will first do a draft. We will then watch all of your drafts in lecture, okay? Giving you feedback. And then you'll have one final week to fix up your trailer. You will be re-recording a lot of footage for those trailers, okay? Because games change a lot, in particular aesthetically, toward the end of the semester. You will also be receiving a lot of feedback on your trailer's structure, okay? It is worth putting a lot of effort into your trailer because when you finish this course, your trailer is how your game will live on for most people. Again, most people will not take the time or be able to download your game, but they will always be able to watch a 45-second trailer, okay? So it is worth it. Once you finish the showcase, the course becomes ultra simple and easy for you. We do not have any exams. You will be able to focus on all of your other courses, but there will be one final reflection essay that you will write. It will be super easy. It will hopefully be cathartic for you, and I hope you enjoy it. Easy, free points, okay? You will eventually start devlogging your changes each week on sites like itch.io, GameJolt, okay, IndieDB. On occasion, a 494 project in development does get some attention from the outside world, okay? There have been Project 3s that go out and actually get a publisher, get a 5-figure check to finish their game. That has actually happened. Hopefully it will happen much more when all of us know Blender and are much better at creating game aesthetics, because it does seem to be the projects where someone on the team knows Blender, they seem to win the showcase, okay? And they get much more attention. So that is your kind of low-level and high-level schedule for this big project. It's a lot, okay? It's a lot to keep track of, but this little schedule here is trying to help you do that. Whenever you move your eyes to the right and you see yellow or green or red, there's something you need to be thinking about on that day. Please take your big 4 to 5 person team and distribute these concerns among everyone, okay? If you cannot do this, if you end up in a situation where one person is trying to carry the team, you will break their backs. They will melt down, and you will end up failing this project, okay? If you distribute all of this effort evenly, you'll do much, much better. But that's easier said than done. One of my recommendations is to find out who is on your team. What kind of person do you have on your team? Who enjoys writing and researching games? Have them do more of the P3 research assignment and less of the other stuff. This assignment right here, EC roster review, this is one of the first of several big extra credit assignments on your P3 project. This is an assignment in which you go and you play the previous games of your team members. You find out who's on your P3 team. You go, you play their P1 gold and their P2 gold. Okay? What will you learn from this? You will learn what your teammates are good at and what they're bad at. My recommendation to you is to make sure your teammates are working on things that they care about and avoiding things that they are bad at. Okay? We'll talk more about this later, specialization, but nothing crushes morale like misassigned personnel. Okay? If you've got someone at your startup who is a god-tier UI programmer, and instead you put them on AI, you are asking for trouble. Okay? So don't do that. Do this assignment if you can. It is a little bit of a time sink because you do need to prove you're playing these games. You need to create a Let's Play. Basically, you just record yourself playing the game for 10 minutes. You send that video to the staff so we can verify you, give you points. You send it to your teammate so they can see how you play through the game and enjoy watching someone play through their game, right? But that's EC roster review. We have other assignments coming up, EC freelancer, okay, and other ways to get extra credit soon. All right, so let's keep going here because we got a little bit more to say about P3. P3 is the big one, okay? Teams of 4 to 5, 500 points at stake. I don't know if this is still the case. I think I might have rebalanced that slightly, but a lot of points at stake. This is a fantastic portfolio piece opportunity, okay? The job market, a little bit tough, okay? But in the industry, and I'm not just talking about games industry, I'm talking about web dev, I'm talking about operating system dev, okay? If you are going to a technology company, most of the people there will know how difficult it is to create games. Games are some of the most intricate and involved and restricted and constrained pieces of software that exist, okay? You'll be going up against people who have some calculator apps on their resume or a website on their resume. And meanwhile, you'll have a gigantic, big, user-pleasing, multimedia-rich piece of software that was developed under very tight 16 millisecond constraints, where all of your computation and rendering has to run very fast. You have to be very careful about your algorithms in games in a way that most of the software doesn't really care about until it tries to scale to hundreds of thousands of users, okay? So, make the best of your opportunity, okay? Grappling hooks as a main central mechanic are banned. If you are curious why, we had a semester not too long ago where P3 Gold Spike came in, did our first play test. Over half of our games were just grappling hook games. That's it. That's the only thing we had. Okay, I just want to make a grappling hook. Okay, got it banned for everyone. You can still have grappling hooks in your game, but not as the central core mechanic. Okay. And if we think you are doing this, we will let you know, and you can pivot for future deliverables, okay? No games that use online connectivity. No online multiplayer games, okay? If you want a high score table or something cheap and easy like that, that's okay. We are working on a course that is all about online multiplayer. Online multiplayer is the kind of thing that is deceptively evil, okay? It looks like it's going to be super easy to set up. There are packages you can bring into Unity to make it run. And then you'll spend the rest of your semester finishing and fixing synchronization errors, okay? That's not what we want you to do. So please be careful. No minigame collections. It is hard enough to make one decently polished game, let alone 10, let alone the 70 that Mario Party somehow manages to crank out every couple years, okay? No games that are violent just for the sake of violence. This does not mean you can't have blood and gore, but you do need to have some sort of reason for it, okay? Don't get too nervous about this. We will let you know if you're getting too close to this, and we'll make recommendations for you to change it, okay? But just know that you represent a university, okay, while you are a student here. And unfortunately, that comes with some constraints, all right? Once you graduate, you can go express yourself fully as an artist. You can go do whatever you want for any reason, okay? Multiplayer games, and this is the one I'm most sad about. Maximum of 2, okay? Why? If we have 4-player games, and we used to have a lot of them, then we need to spend, 30 minutes per game for 20 games every week. That is logistically impossible. When we cap you at 2, we can split that up so that one half of the staff covers one half of the games one week, and then they swap for the next week. That actually makes things logistically feasible. Currently, it is about grading 1 exam every week, whereas in the past, it was about grading 2 or 3, okay? And so just keep that in mind. You are capped at 2 players maximum for these games. Once you graduate this course, what many teams have decided to do is then expand it to 4 players during the summer. Okay? Not a bad idea. Here's a suggestion for how you might schedule and allocate your time on your team weekly. Okay? This works really well for a lot of team members. You ask yourself, when will my team meet every week? What will we focus on when we do meet? And you end up with a schedule like this. On Monday, you submit your game. You attend the playtest because it's a requirement. You miss the playtest, you're going to lose about 10 points. Okay? Tuesday, you don't do anything related to 494. You recover. You focus on other courses. Okay? On Wednesday, you should have the staff grading videos back. So you have a bunch of feedback and data from the playtesting session in here, but you also have data in video format that you can review as often as you want from the course staff. You'll receive at least 2 videos from the course staff playing through your game, commenting on stuff, making suggestions. But remember, don't let us design your game for you. We will tell you what problems you have. We'll probably make recommendations on how you might solve those problems. But these are your games, okay? These are not our games. So keep that in mind, all right? You can watch the staff videos, get feedback from that. You have a team meeting on Wednesday. You kind of plan the week's tasks. What kind of things do we need to work on? What do we need to change? What bugs do we need to fix? Who is best suited to do all those things, okay? Assign your tasks to the right personnel and your life is super good. Assign it to the wrong personnel and welcome to hell, okay? And then on Thursday and Friday, you work on the tasks. On Saturday, you do another meeting, okay? You check progress on all those tasks and you work together to get things finished. If things are looking ugly, on Sunday, you do another team meeting and you try and finalize things. You get things ready, you submit. If things are going well on Sunday, maybe you don't need to meet, okay? Okay, everyone did their merge on Saturday. Things are looking good. You do some play tests on your own. Everyone says, okay, I feel good about this one, and then someone submits. When one person submits the weekly deliverable, what should everyone else do right after that?
Download and test it, see if everything's there.
Bingo. Download and test things. Run it through one more time. Look through the assignment spec. Make sure everything required is there. If you end up getting a penalty because your submission was botched, you may try coming to us and blaming one member of your team who did the submission. We are not going to allow that. We're going to blame all of you, okay? One person submits, everyone else needs to go check. If you didn't catch it, it's kind of on you, okay? So, this is a schedule that most teams fall into when they have a good situation. However, if things are starting to roll over and go bad, then they might need to submit on Monday. They might need to stay up working late into Monday, okay? That's not good. If that continuously happens, week after week, you need to come to office hours. We got to get something figured out, okay? All right, yeah. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about the logistics of Project 3? Okay, good. So you then have some things to think about, okay? You have your P3 Gold Spike, okay? You have your extra credit roster review. I recommend doing this in the next couple days. That will give you some ideas, maybe, about who should work on what and what kind of game we should make. If you have a team full of people who are not the best programmers, but they are wonderful artists, what kind of game would you think about making? A game that's more of a visual novel, or maybe a game that's a little bit more of a walking sim, right? You still have some decisions, but it's a game that's going to be a little bit more heavy on the art, okay, in the aesthetics and the juice, okay? Not a bad idea. What should you do if you play all these games for your roster review assignment and you see games that are ugly, but they're kind of fun? They've got a lot of really cool, like little AI characters, right? They've got a lot of cool NPCs that tend to do interesting things. You might think about creating maybe a simulation game. You're thinking like, let's try and get some Roller Coaster Tycoon going. Okay, maybe go in that direction. Reduced emphasis on art, more emphasis on programming and AI and logic. Okay? This is all to say that you need to size up your roster, your personnel. You need to decide what your team is going to be good at, and then you need to lean into that. If you choose the wrong type of game for the personnel you have, you will get wrecked. Wolverine Soft Studio got wrecked a few semesters ago when it decided to work on a certain genre of game that was very, very art heavy. And Wolverine Soft personnel at the time did not have many artists. And this was a bit of a problem. The team pulled together and still figured it out and did a great job. But they set themselves up to do that project on hard mode. Okay? You know what I want to do? I want to show you a project that was easy mode from the second week. Okay? I want you to imagine taking one of the hardest courses on campus, entering one of the hardest projects in that course, and you're finished 2 weeks into it. You're already getting 100%. You're basically done. You're going to chillax, okay? You're going to go, grab a drink and maybe just work on what you want to because you don't need to worry anymore. I want to show you a game that had everything figured out in the first 2 weeks. And when you watch this game being played, I think you're going to understand why in your core. You might not be able to explain it, but you're going to understand why this game won the showcase in the first 2 weeks of the project, and why the team didn't really have to worry too much anymore about Project 3. Okay? They got lots of sleep. They kept all of their hair. Okay? This is a game called Mogu. And it is probably my favorite game ever from EECS 494. There are a lot of contenders there. This is a game that knew what it was from the word go. They only had 2 main mechanics that they implemented. That was it. And yet they found out how to use these 2 main mechanics for 1,000 different ideas. Super deep, okay? But super easy to play. Would anyone want to play this game? Come on up. So you'll drive this game. This is kind of a puzzle game. In particular, there's one puzzle that I can never remember how to solve. So we might need some of your help in the audience to solve it. But we'll see. This is a game called Mogu. It's a game about a family of mushrooms. And I want you to watch not only how this game works, but how does it introduce its ideas? How does it guide the player? And in this opening cutscene, how does it introduce the theme and motivate us to want to complete the game? Okay? So just arrow keys and spacebar. Get it running for you.
Oh, is it? No, it's not. Okay. Oh, okay.
Can you push the box back into the dump it? No. Reset.
Sorry.
Go back around.
Sorry. Gotcha. You're saying, right. I see. Yeah, but now I'm trying to think. Oh, shit.
There we go. Nice.
Okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. There we go.
This is the one I can never remember how to do.
He said, saying, say again? Wait. Shoot.
Can you box to the left?
You mean
Like further left.
or further left? My bad. You're saying like here?
And then you look at the middle. And now you put left.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. That was a nice one. Let's see. Oh, right, I can. Interesting. Shoot. Say again. Oh, yeah. I'm way overthinking it.
Wait. All right, thank you. Well done. Okay, so this is this game is pretty hard. If you can believe it, the team had so much extra time at the end of development. They added a whole new series of Kaizo ultra hard levels after you get the ending to the game. A few things I want to point out here. This game has a lot of features that make it feel very polished and focused. The intro cinematic at the beginning, a lot of games don't have that, but it sets up this idea that you're not just solving puzzles, you're trying to reunite this little baby mushroom with its family, right? And you do get to see that come to fruition if you do manage to complete all the levels. Another thing, this isn't just a series of puzzle rooms separated from each other and isolated. These are a bunch of puzzles that are all part of one interconnected world, where you complete the puzzle and you immediately walk into the next one, okay? Each balloon is a checkpoint, but it feels like a continuous world. Every time you clear a puzzle, did you notice what happened? The time of day actually moves forward. The sun begins to set, and eventually, if you play long enough, you'll find yourself playing the game at night. And so these features, all these little subtle things, are what happens when a team stays focused and finishes their game's production, finishes the core of their ideas in the first couple of weeks. Mogu is a game that was made basically in the first 2 weeks. 2 weeks into the assignment, all of the main core ideas were there. And the team knew that they had a set of mechanics that could carry them all the way through that 6-week development period. Okay? They knew what their game was. They also knew what their game wasn't. Okay? And as a result, they were accomplishing all of their objectives. They were getting all of the points they needed within those first 2 weeks. And they were able to just kind of cruise. They could focus on polishing things up. They could focus on balancing, remixing some of their stages, reordering things. They could focus on playtesting and polishing their game to a mirror shine because they knew what their game was, they knew its identity, and they knew it early, okay? A lot of teams in this course will kind of not really figure that out for a while, and development will go much, much worse as a result. So that is the single most impactful piece of advice I can give you as we launch into this final project. Try and figure out early, experiment, try and find a small handful of impactful mechanics that create interesting decisions and are deep enough to support an entire 15-minute game. If you can do that, your life on P3 will be very, very nice and easy, and you'll have a great result. This game won the showcase, but it would have won the showcase if they had stopped after 2 weeks of work, okay? That's the power of finding a good set of mechanics early on and knowing what your game is, okay? Don't keep adding things if your game isn't fun enough. If it's not creating interesting decisions, adding more mechanics won't help you, okay? The more mechanics you add, the more things you have to explain, the more things you have to guide and teach to players. And so adding things is usually not the solution. Okay, anyway, let's go ahead and continue. Every single week I'm going to show you more successful Project 3 games, and you're going to find that most of them have that in common. They have a small set of core mechanics that generate a lot of interesting decisions and are easy to teach to players, okay? So what I want to do is I want to kind of continue here. I want to finish up our talk on Juice from before spring break began. I want to talk about the topic of post-processing, okay? If you remember, last time we ended with something like this. We had this kind of snowy scene. We had these very juicy droplets kind of falling from the sky. When they hit, you feel that sense of impact. You feel this screen shake effect. And you also see this burst of particles, okay? Our entire color palette here is very kind of bluish. It's very kind of cold. And we want to make this scene even more cold, okay? We want to feel like we are standing on top of a glacier in the middle of the Arctic and it has turned to night. We are about to freeze, okay? And so how can we go about doing that? Well, we've got the particles, we've got the geometry, but what we don't have are post-processing effects, okay? We want to take this final frame, and before it is shown to the user, we want to go in and we want to manipulate it. We want to edit it. We want to make this feel colder. So how can we do that? Well, the first thing you have to do if you want to get started with post-processing is you need to go to your package manager, Windows Package Manager. You need to change to the Unity registry where all of the cool packages are kept, and you need to search for something called post-processing. You need to install this post-processing stack. This comes with a bunch of components that are going to kind of get us started. So the second thing you do is you go to your camera, which is currently inside of our camera rig. Does anyone remember why we put our main camera as a child of the camera rig game object? Yes?
The spring so we can
Exactly.
not you can get translated without bring it back.
Exactly. Doing this dramatically simplified the math we need to get the screen shake effect. If you remember, our camera is basically moving in its local space in the same way that a spring would. Okay, so we used Hooke's law and all that good stuff. So let's go to our main camera, and what I want to do is I'm going to go for a component. It's a new component. It's called post-processing layer. And we're also going to need something called the post-processing volume. Okay, you need these two components in order to get an interesting post-processing effect to happen. Okay. If you wonder, well, kind of, what are these two components? What do they mean? Layer versus volume. Well, layer is kind of telling you basically like what, where will this take place? Okay, where will this post-processing effect happen? And in this case, we just want it to happen everywhere, so we change it to everything. The post-processing volume, we'll click on the global here, actually allows us to define what effects we want. In order to do that, we click on New, and this creates a new asset. This asset exists in our project pane, in our assets folder, and if you click on it, it's basically just a big list of different effects that we can add, okay? It's not really a component. It is a configuration file that the component references. So let's go on and click on Add Effect, and the first one I want to add, how about vignette? This is a very easy one. So vignette, if you can see, as soon as we added it, nothing happened. And so my first piece of advice, if you are doing anything with post-processing effects, is to add it and then turn everything on and jam it to the max, okay? And intensity is currently 0. It's a terrible default because you turn it on and it looks like nothing is happening. But as we make it more intense, you can see what a vignette is, can't you? A vignette is basically just an effect we apply to the corners and sides of our screen. It's hard to see what's happening here because we've got this kind of black background. So let's go to the main camera, and let's say maybe we're out in the Arctic, but it's actually daytime, okay? So now you can see that we've got a vignette going on. It's very round, so I want to make it a little bit less round, okay? I'll make the roundness a little bit less. I'll make it a little bit less smooth, and now it looks like this kind of cartoon cutout, this cartoon border. I can make it more smooth, okay? Pull it out a little bit, right? And now, right, it's this feeling. If you add a kind of dark vignette to the corners of the screen, it gives you this sense of claustrophobia, okay? And if you look at a lot of horror games, right, if you look at games like Left 4 Dead, let me see if I can find a screenshot of this game. Okay? So if you look at this gameplay screenshot right here, you'll notice that it is subtly using a vignette, okay? On the edges of the screen, there is this dark gradient that is applied. It's very, very common to use this in horror games, but we don't really want a horror feel. What I want is I want kind of a cold feel. So I'm going to bring this in on the edges and look at that. Doesn't this just look cold, right? You might look at this if you're a player, you'll feel this vibe of coldness, but you might not be able to point out what's causing it, okay? If I turn this off, we're just kind of back to a stark vanilla, we're in the Arctic, but maybe it's a cold day, maybe it's not. When I turn this on, suddenly you feel shivers down your spine. It's freezing, okay? And imagine a gameplay mechanic where you need to stay warm in the Arctic. How are you going to tell your player that they're freezing to death? Well, you can bring this vignette in via code, and they're getting colder, right? It's just getting worse and worse and worse, and then they're gone, right? Respawn, okay? But in any case, and that's kind of interesting. You know what this looks like? This looks like a tube TV, okay? So I can come in and I can make this very not round or a little bit rounded. Let me see here. Doesn't this look like I'm kind of looking into a TV set? In fact, if you're going for a retro vibe, you might start with a vignette like this to give it that tube TV look. And then you can go to something called grain. Does anyone know what grain is? I'm going to turn the grain on. And I'm guessing you couldn't tell me what the grain is right now, could you? What did I say? The first thing you got to do is turn things on, then jam them to their max values, okay? Max intensity, max size. And now I'm going to play the game, and I want you to tell me what grain is. What is it? Yeah, grain is an effect that you sometimes see in older films, okay? It is basically a result of the technology that they used at the time. And if you're ever going for a retro vibe, adding this grain in can get you that feeling, okay? And again, I'll go ahead and turn it off. And now, yeah, it doesn't look quite as good, okay? But now I come in and I add the grain, and now it feels like we're playing like an old PlayStation 1 game, maybe, okay? Or watching an old film, okay? So it adds a lot of flavor and style to our game. I'm going to turn it off for now, and I'm going to go back to our kind of colder vignette, and I'm going to make it less tube TV. I'm going to make it a bit smoother. Nice. That looks really good, I think. Okay. Now, say that I want it to feel like it's very early morning. Okay. Like you just woke up, right? You're on your way through the tundra to grab or maybe even hunt your breakfast. And we want to give that feeling, that, that kind of magical early morning feeling. Your eyes are a bit blurry. You're still a little bit drowsy. How can we do that? Right now, everything is super crisp, okay? And we're seeing a lot of bright lights here, but, they just kind of look very standard. Well, what I'm going to add is an effect that's very famous in the games industry. It's called bloom. Okay, and let's go ahead and add it. Bloom. Now, just like I've been saying, you add it and you can't even tell. I really don't like the way that Unity did this, right? Like Unity is absolutely famous for choosing the worst defaults possible, right? When you add an effect, your first question is, well, is it working yet or is it not working? And so Unity would have been well advised to choose defaults that everyone is going to likely notice, okay, when it is turned on. In any case, let's go ahead and increase the intensity here and just see what happens. It feels like we're walking toward the light, right? We're about to go to heaven, maybe. Okay. Bloom, we can play around with these a lot. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. Let me try and run that, and let's just see what happens. I'm interested in how the particles and the droplets will be affected here. Okay. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and say we're going to be at night again. Okay. Oh, this is so cool. Look at this. All right. So what bloom does is now much more obvious, isn't it? Okay, let's go ahead and play the game and see if you can identify what bloom is and what it does. Okay? If you notice here, on this image, any pixel that is brightly colored, that has a lot of luminosity, any pixel that's brightly colored has a smear effect applied to it, where it bleeds that luminosity onto nearby pixels. So if you look closely, these very white particles of snow, they kind of bleed, they kind of glow that luminosity onto the nearby background particles. As a result, you get this feeling that maybe you just woke up and you're a bit drowsy, or that something is a bit magical, right? You've got these pixels that are just kind of emitting energy. And we can make this a little bit more intense, and we can keep the game running. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Let's see how this looks. Wow. So, has anyone ever played Call of Duty and you get hit by a flashbang? Okay. You can use these graphical effects to affect the gameplay. For instance, if you have just gotten whacked and hit in the head and you want the player's vision to be a bit distorted, you can pump up the bloom temporarily and then bring it down over time, and players will get this kind of stunned effect, right? This is a little bit too much, though. One thing that bloom is famous for is being overused. So in the Xbox 360 era, right, in kind of the mid-2000s to 2010s, bloom was so common that people kind of got sick of it. And these days, you don't see it used quite as much, okay? One really good example, let me see here, is the Elder Scrolls, and in particular, Oblivion, okay? Right. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion used bloom a ton, to the point where if any pixels on screen had any sort of lightness to them, to their coloring, you would get this kind of blurring effect. okay, where it would look like it was almost emitting light. And one of the effects of this is that a lot of things in the game just have this kind of mystical storybook vibe to them. For instance, this character's outfit, right, seems to be almost emitting energy. And you might look at this character and say, I'll bet this person is a wizard, right, or is a mage and has some magical abilities or some arcane knowledge, okay? Sometimes, right, it causes people to look not just pale, but ghostly pale. It makes certain environments, right, like this environment right here, look like it's almost an angelic temple or a ritual site, right? And so it's a very interesting approach that the game went for, but you need to be careful not to overuse it, okay? I want to show you another effect, but this one will be a little bit more difficult, okay? I'm sorry, I'm going to turn down the bloom a little bit. For all of you who really like it, you'll have a little bit of it, okay? I want to turn on something called depth of field. And I might mess this up. Depth of field is really hard to understand and get an appreciation for unless you have things in your background that you want people to see. So I'm going to create these kind of other glaciers back here, and I'll make them a little bit different shaped. I could make some really cool things if I had ProBuilder going. As it is, I'm kind of just stuck and forced to use the built-in Unity stuff. But we'll have some stuff that's kind of close by, and we'll have some stuff that's kind of far away. And we might have, let's see how that looks. Okay. All right, we got some stuff in the background. Now let's go to our depth of field. And what depth of field is meant to do is it's meant to make things blurry. Okay. Okay. So you can see now that things that are in the distance are a little bit blurrier. And as I play with these numbers, I can change how much they get blurry when they are a long ways away. Okay? All right. So you can see here that things nearby are relatively crisp, but as we go into the distance, we get these much blurrier shapes. Okay? And this, for some people at least, can be kind of a cinematic effect. Let's go ahead and I'll show it to you in a game that has really optimized for it. This is a game called Dark Souls. Has anyone played it? Dark Souls is a game that is full of mystery, ambiguity, and exploration. It involves a lot of traveling. You are exploring these big open worlds, and if you see something in the distance, there's a very good chance you can actually go there. Okay? For instance, this temple structure in the distance, right? This is a place you can actually go. Now, the game designers, they don't want you to be able to see everything that's over there, but they do want you to see that something is there, okay? And there's a big difference in those two things. They want you to see that there's something over here because they want you to go and want to explore it. They want to create that sense of longing and adventure. I got to get myself over there. But they do not want to make everything crisp in the distance so that you can just explore it with your eyes without actually traveling there. Okay? And that is why they go and use this effect so heavily, this depth of field effect. Okay? And so it can be a very powerful thing to use. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you this scene right here. This is from a game called Final Fantasy 15. Has anyone played Final Fantasy 15? This is a legendary game for how botched its development was. It was a development hell situation where the game, I think, took something like 10 to 12 years to actually come out after being announced. And they kept losing directors, and they kept losing teams, and eventually they finally got the thing pushed out the door. But despite taking 12 years, this was a rushed game. It was a very rushed development, okay? And so you're going to see one artifact of that rushed development right here, okay? The player right now is standing outside of a forge, of a foundry. Now, the designers want this foundry to feel hot, warm, molten, okay? I want you to look inside of this foundry and tell me, what vibe does it give you right now? Yeah.
Standard industrial.
Yeah, maybe it feels a little bit warm because you've got a little bit of warm lighting here, right? Just a little bit of reds in there, but it feels like a pretty standard industrial factory, right? If I told you this is a factory where they made shingles for your roof, you'd be like, yeah, okay, all right. I want you to watch what happens when the player walks through this threshold and triggers a new set of post-processing effects. We're going to go from a shingle factory to something else. Watch this. Does this feel like a shingles factory? Where does it feel like you are now?
Like a nuclear reactor.
Yeah, you are in like an evil nuclear reactor. You're in the bowels of hell now. Okay? Right? It is a very dark environment, and the only thing that provides light is this molten energy, right? This red hot flaming energy coming off the metallic surfaces of this factory, right? This is clearly a forge where they are creating some very, very, very nuclear hot stuff, okay? And I'm going to walk back outside, and we'll see it change. Oh, yeah, back to normal. Back to normal, right? Because when you are walking around outside, you want to have kind of a more general purpose, more standard feel. Okay? This is the power of post-processing. Okay? The lighting didn't actually change. What changed here is a post-processing effect called color grading, which is something I don't use very much, but I probably should. It's called color grading. And you could use it to kind of just change the entire mood of your scene, okay? I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I can get rid of the greens, and I can mess with stuff. Oh, goodness, okay? I can make things just super, super blue, okay? Like wildly so. Let me see, what else can I do? I can shift the hue of my scene. So if you want your entire scene to feel red when you've taken damage, right, implement bloody screen effect that we see in like Call of Duty, you can do it. In the Uncharted game series, has anyone played it? As you take damage, the vibrant world becomes much more gray, okay, and washed out and lacking life. I can take saturation and I can bring it all the way down, and now we are playing a old-timey kind of black and white game. Grayscale only, right? So you can do a lot of very powerful things. You can adjust the temperature, make it colder, make it feel warmer, okay? Adjust the tint, that's basically the hue, right? Color filter, oh my goodness. Oh goodness, I can bring in some bloom using just this effect, right? That's incredible. Let's see what this looks like. I'm just really curious. In motion, what does it look like? Wow. Okay. Teams don't use this very often, but I feel like this would make a really good like KO or respawn animation. You basically just, you have a normal game. Where's our normal game? Here it is. Exposure, here it is. Yeah. You have a normal game you're playing, you get knocked out, and we just kind of fade like this. Okay? And then you spawn the player back in, and you bring it back. And the character is like, they're waking up, they have a little get up animation, right? That's the kind of stuff that would, I expect to happen more as EECS 298 gives people like more Blender knowledge and animation knowledge and stuff like that. Anyway, right, you can see just how powerful post-processing effects can be for creating a certain mood. And when it's done poorly, like it is here, right, how would you fix this? You want to gradually enter into this post-processing stack and not just quickly begin using it. If this game had more time, what they probably would have done is they would have said, hey, let's not just instantly flick to this other set of post-processing effects. Let's create a hallway the player has to run down, and as they run down this long hallway, we will gradually change the post-processing settings so that the player doesn't notice, okay? Anyway, all right, everyone, that is everything I want to talk about on the topic of post-processing. I want to take our 5-minute break, and then we'll spend the last 15 minutes coming back and talking about theming, okay? See you in 5 minutes. Hey. Thank you. Okay. Let's at least begin our talk on an extremely important topic. This is a topic that engineers love to ignore. Okay? It is one of those topics that is not wholesale within the realm of engineering. It is more of an artistic concept, but one that is so exceptionally important to Project 3 that if you do it well, you don't need to make tutorials. Wouldn't it be nice if your Project 3 you didn't need to write any tutorials at all? Players just instantly knew what they were supposed to be doing and what they could do. I want to talk to you about a topic that's really, really fun. It's a topic of theming, okay? Have any of you ever been to a theme park? Okay? Then you might have an intuitive understanding of what I'm about to say, all right? Does anyone know what this is? This is a real place. This is a real photo. This is a real theme park. Yes?
I know that it looks like an abandoned Flintstones ride or something.
That's right. It is an abandoned theme park. It is a theme park that was themed around the Flintstones. Some people said, hey, this looks like the Five Nights at Freddy's sequel, right? It is not, okay? This is Bedrock City, okay? Bedrock City in Custer, South Dakota, okay? This is a smaller theme park, not one that you might have heard of. But this is a theme park, if you look at it, that was struggling for a long time, and eventually it fell apart and it died, okay? In an effort to bring more people to the theme park, they decided to do something, okay? They decided to reach out to the company that owned the Flintstones IP, and they decided to license the Flintstones characters. After which point, the park gained some popularity. They started putting these Flintstone characters around their park. They didn't change their park. They didn't change its guts or its construction. They didn't change its layout or its offerings. All they did was they took what already existed and they purchased a theme, a new coat of paint to put on their park. We are no longer just a normal theme park. We are Bedrock City, okay? And so that is what a lot of theme parks actually do. Have any of you heard of Cedar Point? Cedar Point is a really interesting example of a theme park that just kind of purchases its themes. And when it needs to, it can swap them out at a moment's notice. What is the theme of Cedar Point today? Cedar Point isn't just a generic roller coaster park. What are they? They are?
They have the huge Western section.
Well, they do have a Western section. That's one theme that they use, but they have a more prominent theme. The Peanuts characters, and Snoopy in particular. Okay? Cedar Point purchased the rights to use Snoopy and the rest of the Peanuts gang IP. And suddenly, you see Snoopy slapped on everything. You see it at the entrance to their theme park. You see that they took their little children's kid roller coaster, okay, and they just slapped a sticker on it, and they renamed it, I think, Something's Run. I don't remember what this is. What's the bird's name? Anyone know? Woodstock's Run. That's right. And now they call the area Camp Snoopy, okay? If they removed this theme, if one day the owners of Snoopy came back and said, hey, now we're going to charge you more, what could they do? Yes? They could just take the stickers off. They could replace the characters with some other property, right? And that is definitely what happens sometimes. Themes are extremely important, though. All of you, well, I'd say most of you have seen this ride before, okay? This is a very, very famous roller coaster ride, okay, with the lights turned on. What is this ride called?
Is that Space Mountain?
Space Mountain. Bingo. Take this ride, which looks extremely, generic, not particularly exciting, add a space theme, a space coat of paint, right? Turn down the lighting, add some planets that dangle from the rafters, make the waiting line area, right, look more spacey, play some music that are kind of spacey, right, out of this world music, and suddenly you have one of the world's most famous and beloved rides. Space Mountain, okay? Walt Disney could have done something else with this, but they chose space as their theme. What else could this have been? If you look at the construction, it's a very vertical ride, and it's also an indoor ride. So with those two constraints, can you think of any other themes that might have fit? Yeah. A jungle, yeah. Instead of spacey music, let's play like some jungle ambiance, right? So you can hear the swooshing of the trees, right? You can hear some of the crickets and you can hear the bugs, right? And the birds in the background, okay? You turn down the lighting, but maybe not as much as space, right? Maybe what else do you put? How do we make this a jungle-themed ride? What can we do to really sell that theme? Lots of green, lots of trees, maybe some vines that are hanging down on the side of the tracks, right? Not so close that people can touch them, but close enough that you can see them in the darkness. Maybe we turn this into a very light water ride, right? So there's splashes of water. Maybe we take the cart. It's no longer a spaceship. You're now in like a little boat cart, right? Because you're going down the river or something. Sounds awesome. Any other ideas? How could we re-theme Space Mountain? Space Mountain's getting old. We need a new theme.
Mine shaft.
A mine shaft. Absolutely. It's dark. It's vertical. You're going down into the mines. We can put little veins of gold and silver running along the walls, right? We can replace your cart with a mine cart. We can replace the audio with the sound of pickaxes in the distance, and we can make it rumble. The entire thing will have actuators on some of the walls that give you the sense and sound of rumbling on occasion, like a part of the mine further down just collapsed. Ooh, we can change the intro story so that while you're in the waiting line, you overhear these prospectors on the radio, an old-timey radio, talk about how this mine is opened up and there's this rumor of a haunted part in the bottom that has just tons of gold and treasure, right? Sounds awesome. Sounds like it would work really well, right? Now, Walt Disney World has several minecart rides already, so that might be one reason not to choose it. But that's the power of a theme, okay? Theming is super, super important, okay? Oh, well, unless it's not. So has anyone ever heard of Six Flags? Everyone been to a Six Flags? One of their famous rides is called Ride of Steel, and it has the Superman branding on it. It has the Superman IP. That is their theme for this ride. Superman, right? It's red, it's white, it's blue. It has the cool Superman logo. When you go up in the waiting line area, you get some theming and some plot relating to Superman. Unfortunately, Superman is an IP that is not owned or made by Six Flags. Who owns Superman? Anyone know? Right?
DC Comics.
DC, and I think DC is owned by Warner Brothers. And so, right, when you license a theme, an IP to be your theme, you don't get it forever. After a few years, your licensing contract is up, and what do you have to do if you want to keep that license? Usually you have to do what? Renew it. And that usually means you have to pay more money. So the Superman IP came up for renewal, and DC asked for too much money. Okay? And Six Flags said, you know, we can't pay that. We don't want to pay that for Superman. Okay? And so what did they do? You know what they did? You know what they did to this ride? They removed the Superman logo, and they recolored a few things. They kept the name Ride of Steel, because that doesn't say Superman in it. And they kept the red, white, and blue colors because, you know, red, white, and blue isn't Superman. It's America, right? And Superman doesn't own those colors, okay? And so the Superman theming was stripped. And the ride, you know, continues and was still somewhat successful. Okay. Have you ever gone to Epcot? Anyone go to Epcot? Not my favorite park, but it's kind of interesting. Okay, they've got this big ball in the center. This is like the opposite of what Walt Disney World or Disneyland, the Magical Kingdom, did. Right? Remember, you bring people to the center, but you don't give them anything to do there. This park brought people to the center and does give them things to do there. And if you've ever been to Epcot, like there's a ton of congestion in the central area of the park. It's a bit of a mess. But Epcot has this big lake area where they have a bunch of themes for different parts of the world. So they have one area that's a Nordic themed area, and it had a ride, a water ride. It was a horror themed water ride. That was themed around kind of the Nordic parts of the world and some of the urban myths there. Okay, not urban, but the old legends there. Okay, and so Disney recently had a very, very, very successful film, a film that they didn't expect to be as popular as it was. It was a film that was set in kind of the northern parts of the world. Very snowy, ice-cold parts of the world. Does anyone remember what it was called, this ice-cold film?
Frozen?
It was called Frozen, okay? Frozen came out, and it was massive. But Disney did not have any Frozen-related rides or attractions. And Disney, famously, they take forever to create new things in their parks. And so you know what they did? They said, we need a Frozen ride right now. Okay, what are they going to do? They're going to take Maelstrom and they're going to re-theme it. They're going to keep it a dark water ride, okay, and they're going to rename it Frozen Ever After. They're going to replace the terrifying monsters with characters from the film, and boom, done. They just re-themed the game, okay? Just re-themed everything. And so this is something that you actually see often at Universal Studios and many theme parks. They'll take a park that is kind of getting old, it feels old, maybe the theming isn't as relevant anymore. Okay, Superman isn't super popular anymore, so let's get a different theme. Well, we re-theme it, we change the characters, we change its sounds, we change its vibes, its looks, but under the hood, it's the same ride. Okay? And that is what you care about and think about when it comes to games, okay? You can have a game that is just blocks. It's just blocks and circles. That's all it is. And if you stay with that theme, that basic generic theme, it might work out, but it probably won't, okay? And so one of your goals this week on your P3 team is not only to talk about what kind of gameplay mechanics do we want, what kind of decisions do we want the player to have, but you also need to spend some time asking each other, talking about what kind of vibes do we want our game to have? What kind of characters, what kind of story, what kind of theme do we want our characters to have? If the player starts the game and they look at their character and their character is wearing a white lab coat, what does that immediately tell them? That gives them information, doesn't it? My character is wearing a lab coat. What do I see on the walls of this room? And you see a bunch of teeth and different diagrams of teeth. What is the theme for the game that I'm describing?
Dentistry.
That's right. We are playing as a dentist, dentistry. And because all of your players are humans who live in a civilization, right, that has dentists and dentistry, what does your player already know about this game and what they are meant to do and what their objective is?
You still, they're probably like a dentist, like doing operations.
Yeah, I'm probably a dentist. My goal is probably to go help people with their teeth. You don't need to put hours and hours and days into developing lore and explaining the game's mechanics. Like, the player already kind of understands what their objective is and probably what they need to do. Okay? And so that's the key takeaway. If you choose a really good theme, you get to do less work because the world has already taught your player about this game. Okay? And when we come back on Wednesday, we're going to finish talking about theming and why it's so important. We're going to theme a bunch of game designs together. And I'll give you some really, really powerful examples of why choosing a good theme that fits your mechanics well can make Project 3 super easy. Okay? All right. Everyone, it's 12:20. I'll see you later. Okay? Good luck on P3. I'm probably going to create those random teams this evening. I would expect something like 8 or 9 p.m. Okay? That's when my office hours end. See you later.
Engineering.